And I was about to spar. Before I was about to spar Tank, he was sparring this big boy. A heavyweight boy. And Tank hit that nigga. He hit him so hard that he was on the top of the rope just like this.
The speed, Gervonta Tank Davis, if he put on the right weight, put the right weight on, and have the lean muscle right, he can look fantastic somewhere in the mid 150s, dare I say close to 160 against Jake Paul.
In recently surfaced footage, Gervonta Davis was seen knocking down a heavyweight sparring partner while training for his upcoming bout with Jake Paul. The video highlights Davis's trademark power and impeccable timing as he delivers a devastating left hand that ends the session immediately. Fans are hailing the clip as evidence that Davis's speed and precision remain unparalleled, even when facing opponents significantly larger than him. Showbiz The Adult predicts that Gervonta Davis will weigh in around 154 pounds for his fight against Jake Paul, dismissing claims that Tank will be too small to compete. He explains that Davis has previously walked around at that weight, making it familiar territory, and even notes that Davis has trained at 160 pounds, so the jump isn't as drastic as many believe. Showbiz highlights that Davis has spent years sparring with much larger opponents, refining his timing, reflexes, and counterpunching skills against heavier hitters. Combining that experience with his explosive power and high fight IQ, Showbiz argues, gives Davis a clear advantage in this matchup. Confident in his prediction, he insists that Jake Paul's size advantage won't save him once Davis lands clean, boldly declaring that Gervonta Davis will knock out Jake Paul with ease.
150s, dare I say, close to 160 against Jake Paul. And dare I say it, I think that's the right thing for him to do. Why? I've been saying this. Number one, fighters need to start fighting closer to their walk-around weight. They're just healthier that way. They're just better and healthier that way. I mean, I know it's probably surprising them too. Like, that was the best I've seen Terrence Bud Crawford. Lamont Roach, he's fighting Pitbull at 140, coming from 130 and a pit stop at 135. You have Shakur Stevenson talking about fighting Teofimo Lopez. They're very close to making that fight at 140. And I think all of them would look their best there, especially Roach, where he ain't knocking nobody out down there at 130. But I bet you he'll be swatting far more at 140. Gervonta Tank Davis, I think, just like the others, fighting closer to your walk-around weight is just going to be one of the better performances for Gervonta Tank Davis. He's going to learn a lot about his body. He's going to learn a lot about himself and where he should campaign moving forward. Maybe even meeting Roach in that rematch at 140 himself. Also, another reason why I think it behooves him to come in knocking at 160 pounds is because of Jake Paul. It's not like Tank is going to dodge every punch Jake Paul throws, all right? Some of those going to land, and more than likely it's going to land on his guard. Tank is going to have his guard up. We need for him to be solid enough, his foundation and his base solid enough, so when Jake Paul hits him with those shots, he doesn't go flying around the ring.
Gervonta Tank Davis has reportedly been sparring with much bigger opponents in preparation for his upcoming showdown with Jake Paul, a practice that's nothing new for him. Since the early days of his career, Davis has consistently tested himself against heavier fighters, using those sessions to refine his timing, precision, and overall ring IQ. Known for his explosive power and sharp instincts, Davis has always proven that handling larger opponents is well within his skill set. In the latest training footage, Gervonta Tank Davis appears sharper, leaner, and more focused than ever before. Every punch he throws blends power with precision, the result of years of relentless discipline and mastery. His footwork is light yet commanding, and each strike against the heavy bag follows a deliberate rhythm that reflects his calculated approach. Observers note the intensity in his eyes and the seamless coordination between his speed and power, with experts across the boxing world praising his condition as the best it's been in years, describing him as ready for war. The combination of power, timing, and ring control Davis demonstrates in camp has reignited discussions about his continued dominance at the elite level. One major talking point heading into the clash with Jake Paul is the weight difference. Some argue Paul's natural size gives him an advantage, while others insist that Davis's skill set will neutralize any physical disparity. Fans familiar with his career point out that Davis has long sparred and competed against heavier opponents, often thriving under those conditions. Supporters remind critics that boxing isn't determined by weight alone, but by timing, discipline, and technical intelligence. With his defensive mastery and counterpunching precision, Tank remains a puzzle for any fighter, regardless of size. His team's confidence lies in his ability to use Jake's size against him, proving that for Davis, this fight isn't about showcasing strength, but demonstrating superior skill.
It is happening. WBA lightweight champion Gervonta Davis, who's unbeaten in 31 professional contests, takes on the self-proclaimed problem child, Jake Paul, one of the most influential and marketable global personalities. Paul and Davis square off in Miami after doubts around the fight being sanctioned in Georgia triggered a change in venue. Neither fighter can weigh more than 195 pounds. The weight is perhaps the most surprising factor. Paul has boxed most of his career around 200 pounds, the cruiserweight limit, but did tip the scales at 227 pounds when he faced off against Iron Mike Tyson last year. Davis, much smaller in stature, competes at the 135 pound mark and has also won world honours at super featherweight.
And despite some discussions about possibly dropping down to 10 ounces, the pair seem set to wear 12-ounce gloves.
And in terms of distance, despite the exhibition tag, the fight will play out over 10 3-minute rounds with 3 scoring judges at ringside, but the result will not be officially recorded on their professional.
Lamont Roach has recently voiced his dissatisfaction with Gervonta "Tank" Davis, hinting at unresolved issues between them and sparking discussions across the boxing community. Analysts have detected a note of bitterness in Roach's tone, suggesting his frustration may stem less from genuine conflict and more from envy of Davis's success and financial prominence. Once marked by mutual respect, their dynamic now seems tinged with personal tension, as Roach appears to struggle with Davis's continued dominance in the spotlight and his ability to secure massive paydays while others fade into the background. Boxing commentators note that when money and fame enter the equation, rivalries often take on a more emotional edge. Davis, however, remains unfazed by the noise, choosing to stay silent, focused, and disciplined, letting his work in the gym speak louder than any words.
Off rip, the question is direct. Reportedly, Tank's gonna make $40 million around there to fight Jake Paul. Would you do the same thing if you were in this situation? And he's like, actually, this is what I explained before. You're beating around the bush. It's really a yes or no. I would do it. I would take the 40 mil, or I wouldn't take the 40 mil. But let's listen to this long, drawn-out explanation.
There's about $40 million that he's going to get paid. If you were in his shoes, wouldn't you do the same thing?
See, now, this is something that I explain and express, and I hope everybody gets. That opportunity is an opportunity that you probably cannot pass up. But it's about how you handle it. It's about how you go about it. A lot of people don't know that he actually exercised his rights to the rematch, so that contractually binds us to a fight. You cannot breach that unless you do what you have to do to handle the business, to be like, okay, well, we mutually agree to let you move on or swindle around and fight Jake Paul for this money. If you think I'm going to sit back by the wayside and sit there and be like, well, even though I'm contracted to fight this guy for this amount of money on this certain day, I'm just going to sit here and be cool with, oh, he might not ever fight me, and he's going to go fight and get paid and get this money, and I'm not supposed to get anything.
Boxing experts often point out that Gervonta "Tank" Davis doesn't receive the full credit he deserves for his accomplishments. They argue that many of his opponents gained significant recognition after sharing the ring with him, underscoring the immense influence he wields within the sport. Fighters who were once relatively unknown frequently find themselves thrust into the global spotlight simply because they faced Davis, a testament to his star power and ability to elevate anyone he competes against. Critics who claim he hasn't faced tough enough competition are reminded that his presence alone can make or break a fighter's career. Analysts emphasize that Davis's victories showcase more than just his knockout power. They reflect his role as a central figure in modern boxing, someone whose performances carry the weight and attention of the entire sport.
Discussion in the boxing world about Gervonta Davis and Gervonta Davis, his resume, who he's going to fight, the competitors that he's going to fight. And every once in a while, something happens that proves that Gervonta Davis is the face of that. If he's not the face of boxing because people just don't want him to be that, man, he is real close to it, because other than Canelo Alvarez, and even consider Canelo Alvarez included, nobody in boxing has divisions circulating around him like Gervonta Davis does. And that was Montroach versus Pitbull Cruz announcement for their pay-per-view. Just think about this. Gervonta Davis, they always say that Gervonta Davis has a poor resume. But yet, Gervonta Davis, guys that fight Gervonta Davis, lose to Gervonta Davis, or get a draw to Gervonta Davis, can fight one another and make an anticipated pay-per-view between the two of them. Because that fight with Pitbull Cruz is a very, very popular fighter with Mexican fight fans. Lamont Roach got a lot of name exposure with black fight fans and Mexican fight fans and white fight fans, all with his draw that he got against Gervonta Davis. Now they believe that this is going to be able to be a profitable endeavor for a pay-per-view. Now, let me also tell you that Rolly Romero, who was somebody else that Gervonta Davis fought in the past, will be on a pay-per-view that's going to be successful, most likely, when he defends his WBC.
Stephen Fulton recently stepped up to defend Gervonta "Tank" Davis against accusations that he's fighting solely for money. Fulton argued that every boxer has the right to secure their financial future after years of sacrificing their body and health in the ring. He pointed out that Davis has already achieved greatness, winning world titles and delivering unforgettable performances. So choosing high-profile, lucrative fights at this stage of his career is entirely justified. According to Fulton, fighters must balance legacy with financial security, especially given how unpredictable and short-lived boxing careers can be. His remarks reminded fans that Davis has earned the right to make decisions that serve both his professional growth and personal well-being. Support from a respected fighter like Fulton reinforces the notion that Davis's choices stem from experience and wisdom, not greed.
Anybody in that position would have taken that fight, especially with the payout. It's like, that's a no-brainer. But I understand. I still feel for Lamont. That's my boy. Like, he still want his rematch. But then when you be realistic about the money situation, you're changing your whole family life. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's people hate on it because they're not in that position. I'm not saying Lamont. I'm speaking like other boxers. Be like, oh, he this for that. He's this. It's a side quest. It's a little side quest. Cause what happened when Floyd and all these guys went on WWE, but then they get right back to what they doing? You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it's another little side quest. I'm all for people just getting their money. So get the best, make the most that you can out of this entertainment world. Cause, I mean, I don't know. I would have done it as far as the money aspect, cause none of us would deny that money. They talk like they would, none of them would deny that.
Luke Thomas offered a different perspective on the situation. While he praised Gervonta "Tank" Davis for his exceptional knockout power and technical precision, he observed that something seemed different this time around. In recent interviews and public appearances, Davis appeared unusually calm, almost detached, lacking the fiery energy he typically displays before a major fight. Thomas suggested that Tank might view this matchup more as a business move than a true test of skill, implying that the hype surrounding Jake Paul, rather than the competitive challenge, may be what caught his attention. Even so, Thomas acknowledged that an unmotivated Davis is still a serious threat. His natural talent, refined technique, and vast experience ensure he remains a formidable force, regardless of mindset.
So in that sense, it's a little bit different. It's not different in the sense of a boxer in his prime or relative prime straying off the path, but this one is not. It's not like someone else, in a similar weight. It's like completely the opposite. So that makes it, I think, look and feel weird. And then on top of it, obviously, Gervonta's got other business to handle. He looked to me, Gervonta, absolutely, completely disinterested. Even at the beginning of this year, and even at the pre-fight Lamont Roach stuff, Tank was talking about how much time he has left in boxing, which he wasn't much. The Lamont Roach fight, it blew up in his face, but Lamont Roach was cherry-picked. I think Tank thought, I'll just fight another guy from, the mid-Atlantic area who's, remember Roach came up from 30 to 35 to fight him, and Tank thought he was just going to cruise, and then it blew up in his face, and you're left with that. So you're making a point about he's got this obligation. That's true, but he was already fucking around. He was already taking opponents that, again, I think Roach showed everyone that was a mistake, but put yourself in Tank's mind. Tank was taking a fight against someone he was clearly, in his mind anyway, better than, and was just going to cruise. So he was already in that state. Then you marry that with statements like, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing this, and blah, blah, blah. And, I'm worried about going to therapy because it'll take away my competitive edge.
Luke Thomas offered a unique take on the situation, acknowledging Gervonta "Tank" Davis's renowned knockout power and technical precision, while noting a subtle shift in his demeanor. In recent interviews and public appearances, Davis appeared calmer and more composed than usual, almost detached, missing the fiery edge that often defines his pre-fight attitude. Thomas suggested that Davis might be treating this bout more as a strategic business opportunity than a true test of skill, speculating that the spectacle surrounding Jake Paul could be the primary draw rather than the competitive challenge itself. Nevertheless, he emphasized that even a less motivated Davis remains one of boxing's most dangerous fighters, as his natural ability, sharp technique, and extensive experience make him a formidable opponent under any circumstances.
In this particular in the press conference, and you can just look at him and tell, no, this dude he's gonna get this money for sure, because there's so much money out there to be had. But Jake Paul better be not playing around, man. Not get cute, not play any games, don't hit him in the back of the head, don't rabbit punch him, don't do any of that stuff, man, because Mike Tyson. First of all, Mike Tyson, a lot of people think Mike Tyson was pulling punches on Jake Paul, and a lot of people think that Anderson Silva was pulling punches on him too. You're not going to have a little Gervonta out there pulling punches on you, man, if you're out there playing games. So, I don't like the fight at all. However, as far as it being an entertaining situation, I almost guarantee you that fight itself is going to be entertaining. That it's going to be something that you look at and you're going to say, man, everybody's going to watch it. Everybody's going to want to know what happens in it. But at the same time, it's kind of like what people think, when you see a car crash. Like, you're driving down the road and all of a sudden the traffic gets heavy and you're like, man, I'm going to be in traffic for a long time. And then you drive forward a little bit and then you see, oh man, this is some accident on the other side of the road, and everybody just slowing down to watch. That's the type of entertainment that you can expect from this fight between Gervonta Davis and Jake Paul. There's going to be a lot of people watching it, but I gotta say, man, you really can't blame the guy on what he's doing. And there's a lot of criticism flying on Gervonta Davis. It's not Gervonta Davis's fault that boxing took this turn.
Charleston White, never one to mince words, made his stance on Jake Paul crystal clear. In his view, Jake's boxing career is driven more by entertainment than genuine athletic pursuit. White believes that once Paul steps into the ring with Gervonta "Tank" Davis, the vast gap between an elite, battle-tested champion and a social media influencer will become undeniable. He argued that Davis's reflexes, timing, and years of experience against world-class opponents will quickly expose Jake's lack of true boxing depth. According to White, fame can generate attention, but it can never substitute for hard-earned experience. He emphasized that real boxing legends are forged through relentless competition, not viral moments or exhibition bouts. His blunt assessment echoes the sentiment of many purist fans that Davis operates on a level Jake Paul has yet to even approach, and once they meet, that truth will be impossible to ignore.
Davis and Jake Paul fight. And what he said was, look, man, do not pick against Jake Paul because he didn't believe that any of the fights that Jake Paul have had to date really have been a real thing. And that the boxing world is looking for that great WHITE hype. And Jake Paul is going to be that guy, even though he really can't do it in a real boxing match. So he was basically reflecting and saying that he, you know, the saying where they say, believe a half of what you hear, half of what you see and none of what you hear. He adjusted it to say, don't believe anything you hear and anything you say, anything that you hear and anything that you see. And honestly, man, when it comes to internet boxing, YouTube boxing, and what people say is going on in the media, without a doubt, I think Charleston White is 100% right about that. Don't believe anything you hear. Don't believe anything you see. Wait to see how things play out, and ultimately everything will come out in the wash. Well, going into this fight with Gervonta Davis, I had my concerns about the fight because of he's the same type of reasoning that Charleston White used, except for mine is slightly different. I don't think that either one of these guys are going to try to do too much damage to each other. Number one, because if it's scripted, which more than likely to an extent it will be, Gervonta Davis is not going to put himself in a situation where Jake Paul is going to actually be able to hurt him.
That reality will be undeniable. And that wraps up today's video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for more updates. Until next time.